I am having some trouble with my audio. So I apologize for that. I thought I had this all handled, but I'm going to keep trying. I can, I think, be heard. I cannot, I think, hear anyone, but since it's just me, I think we're going to be okay with that. So I wanted to, first of all, tell everybody that I appreciate so much your input from last week because the um, the winning atlas is something. Three, atlas is something that I think is absolutely fascinating. You can tell I'm a little bit bent out of shape because of the audio thing. So we're going to just go with the three-eye atlas. Last week I brought some information that was kind of basic, relevant to what we were seeing. And I had absolutely the best time with this because it's not something I usually do. I don't do just talk. I usually have a guest and we share information and we go through things. And hi, Kimmy. Hi, Brandon. Thanks for being here. You know, but this is something that I am a member of the Scientific Coalition on UAP Studies. I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not a physicist. I'm not anything except a participating community member. But I am vastly interested in this, and to be afforded the opportunity to spend time with the scientists who are members of this group has been so educational for me over time. It's one of the coolest things that I've ever had an opportunity to do, and I'm very blessed to be given that opportunity because I've followed them for a lot of years. I have attended their conferences and reported on them, shared them, and this is something that since I was young and saw things in the sky, and I don't really share much about that either, but it's real. And so I just thought when I started hearing about this comet that it was something I needed to share with people. And so last week was basically general information because it hadn't come out from around the sun yet, and there wasn't a lot known. And I thought, well, heck, I'm going to just do this. And I had fun because the research was there. And if it's something that fascinates you as well, there's a lot of different places that information is available. And one of the reasons I decided to do this show today is because I've been watching for it myself. I have a Dobsonian telescope, and I am not the most gifted person with it. It's relatively new to me, but I am wicked cool with my sighting telescope. But it's amazing. I have not yet seen this comet, but I'm not sure it's a comet. I know that there's so much yin and yang and blah, da, da, and a lot of strong opinions relevant to that. But it's not behaving like something that's just, passing through has that I've seen any record of. And I find that interesting because when Avi Loeb talks about this, people who are also science-based, and make no mistake, he is science-based. He is a researcher. He is brilliant, as are most of the people I know in this field. Nobody goes into this on a whim, and most have got military training and just follow up with that. Once they come out, they'll work for a government agency of some kind, depending on if they're propulsion or design or whatever. It's something that fascinates them and they stay with. And I found that there are a lot who have had or seen, experiences that made them want to feel like that made them feel like they needed to stay in the research side of this, for lack of a better and less, discombobulated explanation. So I was just so interested because when I did stuff last week, it was something that I wasn't real sure what I thought of it. I knew it was just anomalous. I love anomalies. I knew that it was something that was going to be considered a big question mark and a big deal for humanity. And because if this thing were to be even some of the weirdness that people think it might be, there are going to be thought process repercussions at least, right? So, it would be something we would have to wrap our mind around. The fact that, what would you think if this were something that you came across and it were actually a craft, okay, of some type? Because we've sent unmanned craft all over the place. Hey, Lori. We've sent unmanned craft as far as we can go, and they're still going. They're like, greetings from Earth kind of stuff. I never thought that was a great idea, but don't send a roadmap until you know who you're giving it to. But it's one of the things that all of my life I have seen things in the sky that I couldn't explain. And that started when I was in 7th grade. And it's gone on periodically. It's not all the time, but I'm a hammock layer. I'm a dog walker. I'm outside at night. I like to watch the stars move around. I live in the South. It's easier to do that. But to me, being outside and experiencing this really makes the interest level higher. And I have found that my friends who hunt, who are out in tree stands in the middle of the wee hours of the morning, I've never understood that. But because it's cold, right? It is cold. But in fact, that may be where Carl is right now, is either coming down out of a tree stand, or I don't know. He loves to hunt, and he's good at it apparently. But for those that are new here, Carl is my producer. But it's really one of those things that you just know that you see things you can't explain. I'm also, to be full disclosure, I'm a paranormal investigator too. So anomalous things don't trip me out, and I'm always curious. And I think that there's not a big stretch between interest in one anomalous thing and interest in what a lot of people assume are other anomalous things. I don't think that spacecraft from other places is necessarily anomalous. I think it's very presumptuous to think that we're the only game in town. I say that all the time. The fact that we're a relatively, I would think, young civilization. Okay, so I think that we have gotten to where we're sending unmanned stuff far from us, but we have not gotten anybody really farther than the moon. And for whatever reason, we haven't been back. I think there's reasons for that. But I wanted to recap a little bit about from last week's show. This is only the third total interstellar object that we are aware of, that we have seen. and tracked. And that's just since 2017. And in 2017, we were flipped out that we got, if you didn't listen to me last week, I'm going to apologize to you now because I have so much trouble with this word, Oumuamua. And 2017, that's crazy. In 8 years, we've gotten 3 of these when we've never been aware of them at all in the whole time that we've had a space program. So I think that's kind of trippy. But I did think that it was really cool that they named that a messenger from far away arriving. That's Hawaiian for that. And so with it, there was unexplained acceleration, but there was no tail. And then in 2019, we had Two-Eye Brisop, which was, it was ejecting water vapor. It was having action. There were reasons for it to be moving. And then with this one, I got even more interested in this one because it comes out of Sagittarius. It comes directly from where the WOW signal came from. The WOW signal was a radio signal picked up. Oh gosh, I should have written down the year, but I did not. I apologize. But it was picked up, and the guy is trying to interpret it. The receiver, listening guy, was trying to interpret it, and he was like, oh, wow, this is from outer space. This is wow. So the fact that we received communication, perceived communication from there, also this is coming from there. It's a double whammy. It's a double Coolio thing. And let me look and see what year the WOW signal came, because I think that's going to be something that is relevant to what we're looking at here for the conversation. So, well, fiddlesticks. I was having a little bit of issue trying to get on tonight, so I'm a little bit discombobulated, trying to get all my grieving going on. So we'll find out the WOW signal was actually detected in 1977, and it was first observed August 15th by the Big Ear radio telescope at Ohio State University. And so, Lori, there you are, represented even as we speak. Hi, Victoria. And and Victoria Monday said that 3-Eye Atlas hit perihelion at the very same degree in the same sign as her natal sun. So there you go. And for y'all that don't know, this is a brilliant author, and she's a pretty cool chick, and she's a psychic and medium, so she's pretty special. But so we've got such a short, in all of our development of our science and space programs, we have got 3 things that we have seen, and we've got the WOW signal that was detected from 1977 until 2025. When we had nothing prior to that, and we've had men in space since I was a child, which is almost as long as God was a child. But it really is trippy dippy, because all of a sudden, really all of a sudden, there's never been really any doubt that since we had manned flight, that there were other things interested in them. And there's not a lot to be questioned about that. There's a lot of there are a lot of good people who were part of the space program that I know. There are a lot that I have never met, obviously. But some of the stuff that happened is just weird. I'm trying to get this. There we go. So Edgar Mitchell, who was the lunar module pilot for the Apollo 14 mission, and that launched in 1971. Launched in January of the 31st, landed on the moon February 5th, and he was the 6th person to walk on the moon. And then he retired in 72. But there's a program that he was a very large part of. And if I could type, I would have all of this. And it's called IONS, which is the Institute of Noetic Sciences. And it is a nonprofit research center, scientific research center. And it's very cool. Okay. It's really something that very few people are aware of if they don't have these experiences. But it's Institute of Noetic Sciences, and it's a nonprofit scientific research center and direct experience lab specializing in the intersection of science and, well, gosh, now I can't remember. I will get it. But experiences. It does a lot of different things. It's profound human experience. There's consciousness. They do so much. Dean Radin is, I believe he's the director now, but if you will look at them, it is Noetic, NOETIC.org. And I'm telling you that this group does the most amazing research. They have publications, they have groups that you can, seminars, webinars that you can participate in. They have, they're just trying to bring people who have abilities or people that don't. Is trying to bring knowledge and knowing together. It's how humanity is connected, how we have, like, an example. I'm getting tongue-tied, guys. I apologize. But it's so cool because it's working in how we have interconnectivity. When I am upset or something happens, my husband can be at work and I'll get a phone call. My husband he's very empathetic to me. He's very loving and caring for me, but he is not an empath per se. He is not psychic. There's nothing except for the bond that we share between us. We've known each other since I was 19. That's a long time. So anyway, it's really pretty cool. And, my best friend is in chat, Lori, and we have connectivity of that nature also. And if one of us is upset, generally we can tell that. I think that um, Victoria is talking about the Hopi prophecy, which speaking about the blue star appearing at the end of the fifth world. Oh, come on. It turned, oh, now 3i did turn blue once it came around the sun. And that's true. But, I've also seen other blue stars, but that is a great point. But, the whole thing with this is simply that nobody knows what this is. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of people that are like, oh, it's all aliens. And, it is an unusual craft because we don't understand it. Doesn't mean that it's not something that's natural. I think that, there's a lot to go through, but it's not something I think that we should be fearful of. I've heard a lot of fear, and I don't really get why there's a lot of fear. We have stuff go by us all the time, and none of it to date has just completely been had such a overwhelming effect per se. And I don't know if it's just the fear of alien technology. There's a lot of science fiction movies that make us have that fear, but they wouldn't make them if they didn't sell, right? So, but right now, scientists actually need a lot more data before calling it alien tech, because right now there's just educated guesses. Is it behaving in this way? Is it behaving in that way? And there are things that it's doing that lead one to have questions. And Dr. Avi Loeb, I heard quite some time ago, in the context of this situation, say that it was having non-gravitational acceleration. Well, yes, but with comets, the water vapor, as they come near the sun, the water vapor heats up, is expelled because it's the steam, and everybody knows the steam either destroys it or comes out. It's coming out, which is normal for comets. And the steam, the discharge, space of the tail, creates thrust, which moves the comet. It'll give it a boost or whatever. And Victoria, just so you know, I wasn't trying to belittle the blue star, the Hopi prophecy, because this could well be that. Well, nobody knows what it is. It's anomalous. So there's that. But this week it's been zipping. It's been moving away from the sun, just crazy speeds, up to 250,000 kilometers per hour. That'd be a ride, wouldn't it? And people say I drive fast, but but it's like a cosmic speed demon. That would not be me. I got to tell you though, if somebody gave me something that I could go light speed at and not run into things, girl, I would. But but it is heading back to deep space, because ostensibly once it comes through here, it's going to move on out of our solar system, moving into another. And Oumuamua was doing that as well. I mean, it's just these great big monoliths, big old monoliths, apparently, that are just moving through. I don't know that anybody really knows how they're doing that. I'm sure that I'm going to have all kinds of emails and text messages when I get off of here that says, well, don't you know how these are propelling? No, I don't. So, because from what I understand, there is no gravity away from a body that has gravity to hold things on it. So I don't know. And I'm not going to lie and say I do, because that would just be silly. If anybody listening does, please feel free to get in the chat. You can, if you're listening to this on the Things Network on Facebook or on Born TV, Bill of Rights Network, then you can do that. If you are listening on the YouTube channel or the Fate YouTube channel, wherever you are, and you understand the propulsion of these interstellar objects, I am definitely up for a lesson. I don't have an ego that's going to disallow that to happen. But it is just what it is. And, the European Space Agency used Mars data to nail down its path. And folks are buzzing about a faint radio signal they picked up, sparking all sorts of theories. And overall, it's putting on a show before vanishing for good. Cool stuff for stargazers. And I think that it is. And, it's really interesting to me that this thing, because I was excited, it was coming by Mars, right? We have everything up in the sky. We have stuff sitting on Mars with really good cameras, and we're not the only ones. So I was like, okay, it's going to come by Mars. We're going to see this. We're going to know what this is. Well, nobody really wanted to share that for a while. So it's really interesting because NASA is supposed to be dropping their pics next week. I don't know why they're not out yet. Maybe they're still analyzing them and they don't want to scare us. But they'll show the wild tails. They've got one pointing forward, like an anti-tail from the gas jets, and then a fresher, brighter one trailing behind that popped up after fading out. So I don't know. But I just think it's so cool because, it is cool stuff for stargazers like me because, Avi Loeb did say that there's a possibility that this is a craft. He said that last week. And, but I thought it was too soon to say. And so, what do I know? I am not Dr. Loeb. But, totally fair. Scientists need way more data before calling it alien tech. But right now, it's just all educated guesses. But if I were to put anybody's educated guess ahead of someone else, it would be him. I think that he is one of the best guys in that field. But a lot of scientists are actually kind of confused with what they're seeing because it's different. And some of the anomalies are racking up. And I'm going to revisit Dr. Loeb. I understand that there's like 12 anomalies that he's calling out. And to me, that's kind of confusing because one was just added today. And again, he's putting these in his posts and in interviews. Anytime you see an interview with Avi Loeb, go watch it because he really is brilliant. I think he's really jam up at explaining these things, and it's not going to hurt you a bit to watch an interview with him. He is brilliant. You can go online too and just Google him, Avi Loeb, Loeb. He is a professor at Harvard. He's over all kinds of programs, but just find him and you will absolutely get a great education, even through YouTube. But he's been cataloging these, we'll call them quirks of this comet. And he's called out 12 anomalies that don't quite fit the usual comet playbook, football-oriented town. But so just to kind of break them down, he's not saying it's definitely alien tech, just that these anomalies add up to just enough to make somebody ponder that, right? So, one, its path through our solar system is retrograde. It's going backwards from how things normally do. So, and it was lined up precisely. Like, so it was like, aim straight at us. And I don't feel like we should take that personally, but it was just, the trajectory appeared to be pointed our way. And so, two, there's no cometary bow shock or ion tail when it's zipped past the sun. And so most icy wanderers show those off. That was one of the things that when I was reading this last week, trying to get ready for this, I didn't really understand that. I'm not entirely sure that I do now, but the interaction which creates the tails are the ice is melted, it steams, it blows out, and it can blow out. You've got the dust and stuff on it coming one way from the motion, and then when you get a blowout that way, it's kind of like, and it's stuff moving in both directions. It's kind of cool. That's why there's two tails. So the non-gravitational acceleration boost I mentioned before, is speeding up more than gravity alone should allow. And that's hinting at like hidden pushes. And obviously the thrust coming by the sun, that's there. So I'm not really sure why that was something that caught his eye. Maybe it was just too much for what was expected given the propulsion they knew they would see. And that's a mathematic equation that is beyond my ken. Not really. I could do it. But these are people that do that all the time. For the weird anti-tail that's pointing forward like it's got exhaust blasting ahead of it. And instead of just the trailing behind. That's unusual, apparently. This was kind of cool. A sudden new tail popping up after the old one faded out. So that kind of flips the script, right, on how comets fade. Then, and I mean, I'm serious. I did not know that there was an ebb and flow to comets. I thought that they just kept on, as they were going, because I've seen comets go by. And that's pretty cool. I was so, not going to lie, the only one I've got a lot of experience with, and it's not a lot of experience, Halley's Comet. It hung over this beautiful place outside of Birmingham, and it's owned by the people that own Hallmark, and it's just a beautiful farm. And Halley's Comet was up over their farm for a while. And so if you wanted a photo op, you could get one. But so I just found that interesting. But the weird anti-tail pointing forward like it's got exhaust blasting ahead instead of the dust trailing behind. That's not a thing, apparently. The sudden new tail popping up bright and fresh after the old one dimmed, flipping the script on how comets fade. Did that. So 6, no typical ice vibes in the spectra, just high gases that don't Don't scream frozen snowball. So there's that. Let's see. 7, zero detectable iron. Even though nickel's there. In space rocks, those metals usually buddy right up. So I asked one of my friends who is a rocket scientist, and actually he's not. He does all kinds of stuff, and he is in he's worked for the space programs, and he is still actually he just retired. So there's that. But you know, when I said this thing is how far away? How do they know that there's no iron and there's nickel? And how do they know that this is missing so that there's not a, um, spectrography? So they have ways to be able to tell what is in a body, a space body. So I thought that was cool because, that's a heck of a beam, right? But anyway, Rich, I'm just picking because when I got that information, because I am not him, I was like, well, how did that happen? How do you know that? I got a great lesson. I did. Let me see if I can pull that up because if I can, that will be a neat. Oh, I do have glasses. Maybe I can tell you. But let me look. Okay. The my question was, how does this happen? All right, solar winds can play havoc, usually creates the comet tail. And so there was that. But the spectrograph can tell you composition, temperature, pressure, magnetic motion, and speed as well. And it's like a diffraction. So the comparison I got was, ever seen a rainbow? Light is diffracted through a glass or a raindrop. If you have a diffraction grating or a slit in a camera lens cap, you can mount it to a telescope and get a picture of the elements on a picture. So, rocket science, I'm telling you, I am so blown away by these things. I'm so blessed to be able to talk to these people. So, I love that. So, anyway, so there's no iron, which there should be. 8, the whole thing's tumbling end over end, way too fast for a chill comet cruise. So that's something that, I found that fascinating because my idea of comets going is just like boom, 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 boom. And that's the way that Oumuamua was portrayed in every image that I saw and every person I talked to. There was never a tumble. It was just like a. So to me, that was interesting. And also, if it's tumbling, it doesn't make sense on how those steam jets can provide that kind of thrust and it be controlled. And let me see, we have comments here. A two-ply tissue that's been pulled apart and then a comet was placed between the two tissues. Yes, that's pretty much it. So, but again, I do not understand why this thing is like tumbling end over end. And I know that all of the imaging that we are shown, it looks like a ball with a lot of, looks like somebody's been on a driving range just taking chunks out, right? Bad golfers. But to me, I don't think tumbling is the way that these things are supposed to move. course, nobody asked me my opinion. I didn't get any input on how these things move. So there you go. But it is going wide open with a choke out. And if that were, I've never heard anybody say that about another comet. So the ninth one is no visible dust coma or halo around it, just sharp edges where you would expect the fuzzy glow. And I don't think I have that graphic. Let me look. So, because I tried to keep this. Let's see what that is. Yeah, just the glow. You know, it's right there has a glow. This was from July 21st, so that's several days old. And then here it's just kind of like it's got the tail on it. So that doesn't make sense unless this is not really where I pulled it down. It said that that's what it was. We'll go back and look here in a minute. But anyway, it's me. So this one's trippy. Okay. To me, this is pretty trippy dippy. There was a faint radio blip that they caught. Could be natural, but it's oddly structured. You know, it's like a signal peeping through the noise. And I think that the radio blip is, I didn't think that it would be something that would be considered anomalous. I figured that perhaps it would be creating some sort of electrostatic that would pop up and it could be interpreted that way. But apparently this is one of the things, you know, it's people thought it was a beacon, like a, not like a beacon, but like a transmission or a beacon. But it's not. It's turns out that it's a natural glow from hydroxyl molecules, OH, that telescopes picked up as it swam close to the sun. That's the gas you get when water ice evaporates and splits apart under solar heat, like the steam from a boiling pot. And comets do this all the time, so it's not unexpected. It's totally expected for an icy visitor like this. And Avi Loeb flags it as an anomaly because the signal's faint and it's really oddly structured, you know, kind of narrow band in spots, pretty much too tidy for outgassing. So it's more like a weak modulated transmission. So that's something that's just kind of a bizarre thing. But you know, astronomers are like, no, it's just the usual chemistry, no aliens required. But it definitely, you know, it definitely kind of just stacks on, you know, to the level of weird. And I think that it's neat. And I just think that the structure of that is kind of what makes it even questionable, because when they said oddly structured, narrow bandwidth, it's like a radio signal that we see in our transmissions. And I don't really know what makes people question that. And that's the hook. You know, it's like the signals tuned to specific frequencies, almost patterned, echoing how we humans encode radio waves for comms, not the broad, messy smear you get from a random comet gas, right? Expecting or exploding into space. And I think, you know, he's eyeing it as a possible modulated whisper, maybe left over from tech, because natural OH lines from water breakdown are usually whiter and fuzzier from Doppler shifts and turbulence. So, but a lot of people, you know, pushed back pretty hard on that. And they said it's just the hydroxyl radicals, back to the hydroxyls again, absorbing radio waves at precise wavelengths, totally standard comet chemistry. And so no encoding necessary, and any structure is from the telescope setup or the gas flow lining up. And I just don't even know what I think about that. But the flip side is that no one's caught a repeat or, you know, decoded yet. So it's 90% natural, 10%. But fuels that little bit of wow moment. I think it does. And I just find it fascinating that it's just crazy, because there's so much here and I'm kind of blowing through it, but there's a lot. And I've spent, last week I decided to do the show on this, or, you know, Sunday, I decided to, that is not right. Wednesday, I decided to do the show on this because I found it interesting. Then last Sunday, I did this, but when I didn't have nearly the information available, and I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not an astrologer, astronomer, or anything of that nature. I am a person who hosts 2 anomalous topic radio shows. I am absolutely blown away by the fact that this is something that is a natural phenomenon, but it's blowing a lot of scientific minds out of the water. And these are people that I know, and I don't mean blowing out of the water like their hair is on fire. I mean blowing out of the water because this is so cool. And this is only the 3rd one ever, and it's happened in this short time frame. And this is something that absolutely, positively is unexpected. It came from someplace that we've already had anomalous experiences from. The WOW signal was quite something. It's never been repeated. I have spoken with Seth Shostak, who is SETI, and he has assured me that there's never been anything indicative of extraterrestrial life, his experiences with the things that they've researched there. For probably 10 years, I had my computers running the SETI program. It's a global thing. And I never saw anything. So the fact that now all of a sudden these objects are showing up, they're coming through deep space. They're, you know, here we had an energy burst, right? That people thought was a radio signal, narrow bandwidth, specific, then it's just really something that you wouldn't really think that this would be something that skeptics would be looking quite so hard at discounting. They're looking for a way to discount it. But they kind of are. These are the same people. They spent their careers discounting alien stuff. Or anything that looks too perfect gets extra scrutiny. And really, honestly, it's the way science works, right? You know, you don't get to claim probe or whatever unless you rule out all of the other things. You don't get to go jump straight to anomalous until you've ruled out everything. And I think that I saw a writing that said, so while Loeb's anomaly sounds sexy, the skeptics have the ace up their sleeve. No one's been able to repeat or amplify the blip under lab conditions yet. So if you're looking or you're trying to prove or disprove, or if there's something that's just so different, right? What is that? Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. They do. And so you have to rule out all the boring explanations first, right? So is it boring? With this being there, I don't think there's anything boring about it. And I do say, and I do agree, that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. And I think that it's the way of the beast. So, you know, it's these are the same people who have spent their entire careers discounting alien stuff. All of the things, alien stuff. And, you know, I work for Fate Magazine. I am the host of a show that is all about anomalous things. Yeah, don't you love when that lighting does that? Anytime I move out of frame, it's just hilarious. But, you know, this is our new issue. And I'm going to not be able to get it right. But the cover article is the Skinwalkers and the wonderful Stevie Tombstone, a great musician. You should check him out. Actually wrote that article. And then the UFO phenomenon is a follow-up article in there, Easter Island, and more. And I just thought, because this just came out, so you can find it online. If you run across me at an event, I'll have some with me. I'll be glad to share them with you. But, you know, this has a lot of really, a lot of really great articles. I'm going to turn that light. I'm failing miserably. No, I'm not. There we go. But one of the things that's in here, UFOs, a realistic assessment, which I think this was put together before this situation, so I'm going to be interested in that. Chestnut Ridge, which is actually written by Maxim Furyk. I've had him on a couple of times this year. He's a great guest, a great writer. You'll enjoy that. Space Mystery in Russia, written by Alexei Arkhipov, The Power in Your Hands, Remembering John Mack, which is written by Keith Thompson, Lilydale Then and Now by Ron Nagy, Easter Islands Rongorongo Glyphs. That is a Robert Schoch article. So then, oh my gosh, I had not seen this. There's an article in here by Richard Sennett, who is one of my favorite authors. He's out of California. He is a friend, and he's been a guest of mine over the years, and he's coming on Fate again. So yay, I missed that. But his article in here is Ghost Boy of the Confederate. Y'all are going to love him. So, you know, I do a show for the magazine that carries these kind of articles. We are fascinated. The very first Fate magazine was the Kenneth Arnold story. And that to me was so neat because I was gifted one of those first editions and I was beside myself with joy. It is in my drawer. It's under lock and key. I read it. But anyway, I'm just blown away because I just had a birthday. I'm 64. I'm 64 years old. And I really, I was in 7th grade when I had the experience with UFOs. And my dad was like, oh, that's a helicopter. Well, I spent my young life, and in fact, I had that afternoon watched them jump out of helicopters because my dad was Special Forces Green Beret, and they had been practicing. So that's why I had a bunch of Green Berets at my house that night. And there was an object that was totally still, no sound. And they tried to tell me it was a helicopter. I'm like, I just watched y'all. I was pretty precocious. I was 7th grade. You know, that's a tough age. But anyway, bless their hearts, they did not like stuff me in a can or anything. And that night, my sister and I shared a room. She stayed asleep and there were lights in our room. And they were not police lights. They were like green and white. And it was weird. So I've been interested in this stuff since then. Move along the lines. I was doing paranormal experience, had not yet started doing Fate, and I applied for credentials to several cons that year. And the first one I got credentialed for was the very first Alien Con. It was held outside of San Francisco in a little convention center. And it was a very small convention center. They expected about 3,000 people. They got about 9,000 people. It was a madhouse. It was all of the regulars from Ancient Aliens plus George Noory and a lot of other people as well. It was crazy. And I got such an education on the topic in that time frame. I was very fortunate to be able to spend time with Kevin Burns. We had some opportunities to talk. And Susan, oh goodness, I can't remember her last name. When Kevin passed away, she became the person over that. And she was very gracious. I made sure to let them know how much I appreciated being there. It was my first time. And that's when I first met George Noory and his producer, Tommy Danheiser, who is somebody I call a really good friend. He's a nice man. I met so many people, and I was so educated by these lectures I was hearing. And I've since gotten to interview a lot of the gentlemen and ladies that are on that show. But it just blows me away that that's what my first exposure was. And then I was later at, is it that same year? No, it was the next year. I was at Contact in the Desert, and I was at UFO Congress in Phoenix. I had been at the Ozark Mountain UFO Conference, which, if you can get there, is such an up close and personal event because it's at the put on by Ozark Mountain Publishing, which is fantastic. Dolores Cannon's family still runs that. She has passed. But I did not know about a lot of the things that are just commonplace, really. But Southern, didn't get a lot of that. If it wasn't, a relative that could do the stuff, then you didn't really talk about it. Or if it wasn't you who could do the stuff, right? So anyway, it was fascinating to me to be exposed to all of these things. And I just couldn't believe it. And every year that I've gone to Ozark, it's just been fantastic. Right in the middle of all that, I broke my knee. I couldn't do anything for like 3 years, but there's that. But when I went to the first Contact in the Desert, I ran into experiencer groups, right? And I did not know that this was such an organization of experiencers. There were a lot of people who have been either abducted or just had conversations with or come across. And I was walking with Linda Moulton Howe through one of the crowds, and she stopped. And there was a young woman there, and she was so beautiful. Oh my gosh, her coloring was magnificent. She was just glowing. And she was with her mom, and Linda said, "Really?" And the answer was yes. And I had just met my first person who was, I hate the word hybrid because I think it's not the most complimentary sounding term for somebody who is so spectacular, right? But that would be an apt description. And it was just very, very bizarre. And Kimmy, you're absolutely right. It's ironic on how high strangeness from our youth brings us to where we are today. It is. And, when I experienced somebody who had traits that I had only read about in books, her eyes were spectacular, her hair and her skin was glowing, like glowing. And, I was absolutely stunned, just stunned. And if I had not been with the person I was with, I would have missed her because I just would have. But this individual immediately recognized this young woman for what she was. And there was no shame. There was no, oh my goodness moment. It was just like, really? Yes. And, I was just like, I'm sure my jaw was on the floor. Not going to lie. I was so surprised. And so my mind through that first year was being opened up to so many possibilities in this particular field. I'd been a paranormal investigator for years. I'm very experienced at that. I was not very experienced with alien interaction or relationships or things of that nature. In the course of my conferences, I met a woman that I really thought was very cool. And she had shared her experiences in a book, but she was very nervous about it because she had just written it. And I had her on, and she got very, she did the show. I thought she did a fantastic job. It's a very difficult topic, but she had written a book. I'd heard her talk about it at a conference. That's where we met. And so I invited her to come on. After the show, she was very tripped out and asked me to pull that show down. And I was like, I don't know how to do that, but I'll figure it out. So, but I just tried to reinforce with her that she had done such a beautiful job that nobody was going to judge her. And she just wasn't comfortable. So obviously that changed. But it was so, I learned how difficult those experiences can be for people. And, now when I sit back and I think about it, I don't think that anybody that I've talked to in the last, 10 years I've done paranormal experience, and I started doing those conferences almost immediately. I don't think I've spoken with anyone that would have had a comet that people think is a craft on their bingo card for this year. I didn't. I look at the sky all the time. I see things all the time. And I know that most of that is going to be natural stuff. It's going to be, our craft. And hey, Nicole, I have had this alien. His name is Al. My husband got, my first owl was blue. And so my, he died. I have dogs and he died. So we had to get a new guy in. So he is Al Point 2. So it's just so interesting to me that, I didn't like the idea of skinwalkers. In fact, when I was first doing this, I got a book by a guy named Ryan Skinner, who had written the Skinwalkers book. He was somebody who was young at the time, kind of foolish, right? It's what you do. And he lived near the Skinwalker Ranch back when the original family that had the issues lived there. And he would try to find what was happening there. And so he got more than he bargained for. He was trying to leave and something was chasing him. I can't remember if that particular first time was on his mini bike or in his truck. But yeah, this guy, he was wild. I couldn't believe that he would do these things. And then when I started reading about, after they left, what the house was like, it was just so bizarre. I never anticipated talking with these people. And so I'm sorry, I have to check something out because my plug is saying that it's not plugged. I've got to figure this out or we're all going to be missing me. And let's see what we've got here. But crash, bang, bang. Nothing like excitement. If my lights go out, I'll be back. But anyway, so I never really understood why people would go and put themselves in that environment. I would never do that. To me, that's way trippy dippy. And I don't know why this does that. I have done that twice, and both times it turned off. Oh, I know why. I don't understand it. We'll just talk amongst ourselves while I do this. But I sit there and I think all these people that are doing work that I find absolutely fascinating. And, when I am talking to them, found it. But when I'm talking to them, it's a very bizarre. This is going to turn off again. Sorry, but I'm still here. Better for the light to go off than the computer to go off, and I can always reconnect that. But it's really all these people that go into these situations. Like, I thought that Ryan Skinner was a nut because of the things that I was reading in this book. I was not well versed in Skinwalker Ranch. Obviously, I'd heard of it because we all had, but you know, it was just something that it was like an old wives' tale or something. It wasn't something that I took seriously, that I thought was a real. God forgive me. I don't mean to sound like I am that person, but I didn't think that it was real. And then when I started reading about it, I was like, holy cow, this stuff is real, or these people think it is. And then, and then the next owners of Skinwalker were having experiences too. And now, Brandon has it, and all of the other stuff that goes on there. And like I said, I have been reading about this place for, oh gosh, at least 30 years. And so then, it turns out that this stuff is for real. And now I know people that are on it now. And to me, it's just kind of like, well, who wants to be doing this, right? I don't think that it's a good idea. And I I think that one of the things that gets me, and I know that goodness only knows Travis catches all these, you know, comments about, you know, rockets, 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 rockets. Well, he is a rocket scientist, right? And I think that it's really interesting to me to watch how it's gone from one way of researching it to another way of researching it because you're trying to get into where you think stuff is. And so that makes life interesting. But, then all these people that are like, well, there's no such thing as, men from Mars or whatever. And it's like, well, yeah, we've been to Mars, but we don't have all the information that we should have from, those expeditions. Where's the, you know, I feel like we should be getting that feed 24/7. That's what I think. We've got the stuff there. It's solar powered. Let's see it. Let's see what's going on up there daily. But I think it should be like webcams 24/7. That's just me. Because if there's not anything, then we'll know that and we'll quit spending the money to go there. If there is stuff happening, then we'll know that and we'll be more vested in sending more stuff there. And it's our tax dollars at work, right? Let us see what's happening. We'll throw money at you if there's actually anything there that's going to benefit us. And I think that there's a lot to be said for, full disclosure. And that's one of the things that people are always asking for. Like with this comment, right? Is it a craft? Why is it behaving this way? This is not normal, comet behavior. Where is the, where is the explanation for what we're seeing? Because there's not a lot happening here that doesn't, you have propulsion, you have unknown methods of propulsion happening ostensibly. So let's find out why somebody that knows his stuff thinks that this is anomalous. Let's find it. And, there's a lot to be said for keeping things quiet, maybe, back in the 60s when people were afraid of the men from Mars, when, the people were still traumatized from somebody help me out with the movie, Orson Welles. Well, you're so going back. War of the Worlds. People were so stressed out from Orson Welles and the War of the Worlds. I think that was our first test as a society. How are they going to react? If we tell them that this stuff is happening, what are they going to do? Well, we failed as a society. People jumped to their deaths because they thought that Orson Welles' show was real, right? So, can't have disclosure. People are going to die. And so that was then. This is now. We have so many people who are having experiences. We have so many people who have, are in the abductee society. They not society, but, classification. We have so many people who have all kinds of experiences, not just horrible ones, great interactions, friendships, whatever, relationships, in like 3 cases that I know of, and I'm just me. But, you have rocket scientists who are seeing things. You have pilots. Look at all of the stuff that Jeremy Corbell is bringing out with his movies and his footage. And, there's actually stuff that's we have so many cameras everywhere. They're being documented. And then, you've got brilliant films that are being put out, again by Corbell, but there's other people too. And you've got IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which is trying its best and doing a great job of bringing people into ways of like working knowledge with consciousness and how you can build that. And you've got all these other things. You've got all these programs. You've got people, equipment on Mars. You've got places they're trying to find a way so that we can live off this planet. Well, if you will show us stuff, if the government, if you're listening, if you will show us stuff, if that planet was not just going to shoot through our solar system, but was coming at us, would you tell us? Fair question. Would you tell us before it was too late to do anything about it? If you had a plan in place to do something about it, it would have been funded with our tax dollars. And we have a right to know that. It's absolutely only right for us to do that, for us to have that knowledge. And personally, I do not understand, what's that saying? You don't really think they spend $18,000 for a hammer, do you? Right? There's stuff that's happening with our money. And if you don't think that we can handle the information, you better start thinking differently. Because as a society, if we're ever in danger from something like this comet, it's not the end of the world. But is it? I don't think that's true. But what if it were? What if something were coming at us and they're spending all of our money? I mean, our taxes are going somewhere. We know we have stuff on Mars. How long has it been since we put a person on another object? We need to be doing better exploration. We need to be doing better at managing scenarios. worst case scenario, why don't we have deflector shields or something that we could implement of that nature? I don't know. I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not an engineer. Married to the brilliant machinist who does all kinds of engineering, but that's not me. I do, this. But there's people that have all this knowledge. And Kimmy, I would love to, but it's going to be in the summer. Kimmy is a Bigfoot person, and she is working with Jay Bajan, and they have got a film out. And so, seriously, she is jam up. And I will come up there, but I will come in the summer, if that's okay with you. Not in the fly season, though. But, and I will take you up on that, because I would love to be in the woods at night with you and Jay, because I would hide between the two of you. I don't like bears, and I don't like things that, slither and bite. I live in the South. We have just things that slither. But, I think that if nothing else, I think that having 3 interstellar objects in our skies, in our path, right, since 2017, 8 years, probably 7 if you count time actual. But, hi, Ray. But we have had this many objects in this short period of time. And if that was coming straight at us, we've got nothing. We have got, what is that old saying, bend over and kiss your butt goodbye? No, I don't want that. I want options. I want to know that our tax dollars are going to fund things that are actual benefit to society. I don't want to be spending $18,000 on a hammer. And I don't want somebody handling our money that thinks I'm stupid enough to believe that. I just sound Southern. I'm not stupid. So, it's just one of the more exciting things, I think, of our time, that we have this coming through. We had a Muamua coming through. We have, Tuai Brissov coming through. We've got, so far, 3 experiences. So far, officially, we've dodged a bullet now 3 times if this one doesn't hit us. And what's happening to protect us from these? And, if it's a craft, you should tell us that too, if you find out that it's a craft. Because we could handle that too. So, I'm on my soapbox. It's standing right here under my feet. I should probably step off right now. But, what do you think? We've got some people in chat. Nicole, do you think it's from God, the comet, or Al? Because you were asking me about the alien. And it's nice to have you in chat too, by the way. But, I just think that, what we have happening, this is the 3rd time in 8 years. And it's actually, let's see, a little over 7 years. But, 2017, that was kind of interesting. But it also had unexplained acceleration. And it was just a rock. They actually showed what they said were images of that, right? So it did look like a flat rock. But it was going, what they showed us was of it just kind of, like zooming through. Just zoom, zoom, zoom. And it didn't, from what they showed us, it didn't have the tumble motion. It didn't even look like it rolled based on what they shared, it just looked like it was like a surfboard going through, right? It was just flat. And it was flat. That was a very strange looking thing. But it looked like it would have made a good skipping stone, right? If you could hold it in your hand. But and then I don't recall seeing, and correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody in chat saw it, I don't recall two-eyed bristle being reported on so much. Do y'all? I absolutely don't. I was surprised when I found it. And of course, that was probably when I was hurt and I wasn't paying attention to very much. So that's always a possibility. I lost a lot of time right in that period, but it's over now. So, and then now we have this one. And it's so much larger. And that's something I find interesting because I thought Oumuamua was huge. And this one, they said, is so much larger. And this one's round. And like I said, the graphics, I think they're graphics that they're putting up. I don't think it's actual imaging of this satellite, of this comet. But it's like a funky shaped rock, like roundish, with divots on it. So has it been traveling long enough that it keeps getting hit? And when it gets hit, that should knock its course off, right? So there's that. So would we actually know where it originated if that were the case, if each one of those divots was where it got hit hard enough to create that and knock it off course? There's so much to this stuff, right? I had no idea until I started talking about it. But I'm just so interested. I guess that the reason that they started changing the name, because like I said, with the first one, they gave it an actual name, a Hawaiian name. It's a really cool thing, a messenger, from afar arriving. It did. So, but again, no tail. So I found that odd. Comets have tails. And then you have, I don't recall Brisov, and then you have Atlas, which is it's pretty astounding. It really is pretty astounding. So I'm actually loving it. And now I can't get to where I wanted to be. One of the things, I asked an AI program about, a summary. And it said, glad to help. You're doing a good thing breaking it down for listeners. If you need a summary, a one-line summary, it's a rock with a flashlight. I don't really understand the flashlight, but I will tell you about that. Tails, jets, glaring lights. Yeah, it's something that it needs to be fun. It needs to be a learning experience because that's what it is. We've had 3 of these in this time period, but as far as we know, we didn't have any prior to that, or none that we were told about. So if this is going to be a future thing, then I think we need to be more creative with naming them, make it fun, and don't be so don't be doom and gloom. We know it's a scary thing. We know it's kind of a freaky thing, but it's still a cool thing. It's going to be stuff that our kids are studying in school later. There's going to be books about these things. There's all kinds of really neat ways to play with this. It's there's just so much. Just so much. I think that, if nothing else, we need to be talking about, you know, educating ourselves about what's out there. Yeah, there's so many, Dr. Loeb calls them anomalies, but it's just stuff we didn't know perhaps with the first one. And there was some talk about the weird the weird exhaust that was just like staying in position, and that's probably where it was just venting through. Yeah, like with our jets, there's a path for the heat and the thrust to come out of our jet engines. And perhaps the reason that the thrusts were so rigid that they were seeing in the imagery on the Comet is because it was coming through slots that were cut through somehow, or maybe it's freaking engine, because who knows? But you shouldn't be freaked out because of how something looks per se. So I don't know. Oh, strong solar storms too. Yes, I'm about tired of the solar storms. But although I didn't have quite as much problem with them as I thought I was going to, I figured we would be without power, and that's another thing. All the stuff that's happening. A good solar storm can jack up everything. So that's another reason that we need to have conversations and research and be using our money for preparation and stuff. I mean, not everybody can afford a generator. Not everybody is a homeowner that can put in a generator. Or, you can't necessarily have, solar chargers and things of that nature are expensive. And in my experience, they have not been very reliable. I don't know why. Maybe it's just me. I know I kill all kinds of batteries and electronics, but it's just my energy. But that's always been. That's not just because I started hunting ghosts. This has been all my life. I just kill things. Couldn't wear watches. My grandma used to laugh because she would have to go buy a watch often. But we need to understand stuff. What do you do? How do you protect with this? I had said something about deflectors for the comets, asteroids, space junk that's coming in. And what do you think you would do about that? Kimmy, what do you think? Raymond, what do you think? I'm curious because Victoria, you're brilliant. So I'm just curious what other ideas you can have. Lori, if you're still there, you also are brilliant. Hey, Nicole. And you got ideas? I just wish that there were a way that we could have confidence that our government was working on this in a manner that was having a chance to have a real effect. And I am not somebody that's anti-government. I think that people decide that they want to be in government. They're either bat poop nuts because it's a tough thing to do, or they're looking for cash. no sane person wants to be doing that, in my opinion. I think it would be a tough thing to do. But, you know, we've got people like Dr. Loeb who are out here putting forth ideas, trying to understand what's going on with these things. And, you know, the way that we keep seeing this, you know, the thrust. I'm going to change that topic because I want to talk about this before we go. But to me, the thrust is interesting. And I'm not really sure what I think of it, but I know it looks like precision engineering, right? Like thrusters in a low key kind of way, helping it hold formation. And, you know, I've mentioned that they were talking about it, you know, stable gas flows from uneven heating, but those thrusters, no wobble, no blur from the tumbling. Razor straight over 1,000,000 kilometers, no wobble. No wobble. I mean, really. And yet it's tumbling. Pretty good engineering, really. So I wish I understood these things more. I'm trying to learn them. By the time I learn them, it's going to be gone. And we'll be looking for the next one and hoping that it doesn't come through and hit us. Although ostensibly this one was coming straight at us when it came out of its solar system into ours. And, you know, what do you think changed that? I got nothing. I got nothing. I don't know what would change that. I'm trying to learn. I'm getting better. But, you know, it's and I actually did ask. I asked the program, and it was just like, yeah, that's a head scratcher. But I do think that if I were to be breaking this down further, what would you want to know? You know, is it with the thrust? Is it something that may be a crack? Because yeah, at one point it's tumbling and you've got all this stuff going on, and then at another point, you know, you have thrust that's keeping it stable, but yet it's tumbling. So what do you think? It's just so bizarre. Yeah, just so bizarre. But I think that it's fun. You know, I think that the mystery, the mystery and the opportunity to see this is one of my favorite things. I mean, when I thought that it was already in range, you know, it was cold. I had that. I had my telescope out that afternoon to get it acclimated so that I would be able to see. And I'm looking all at, you know, around Jupiter and trying to get a little bit of reach with it. And I was just, but it was also a full moon. I was getting too much light in it. But I'm learning. It's not, I haven't used it that much yet. It's kind of new. And I got it from a sky gazer up in Huntsville that works for NASA. So it should be a pretty good telescope. But I am trying to look at this with wide-eyed wonder and get a chance to see it if I can, and trying to learn everything I can about it, because I think that if we have three this fast, we're going to be seeing more of these. And I really want to be able to approach them with a sense of wonder and not a sense of, holy crap, which was kind of my reaction at first, because, you know, there's a lot of things that can cause a holy crap scenario. And if that's the case, that's the case. I mean, there's not really much we could do about it, right? So panic is futile. Resistance is not futile, but panic is futile. And I just think that there's so many opportunities to learn these things. I think that there's so much more that we can anticipate. I think that we're going to be seeing a lot of these. And I don't know how I feel about that, but maybe some of my rocket scientist friends are busy as bees trying to devise a methodology to not have to leave somebody on that sucker to steer it away. So I don't know what movie that was, but I do know that that was a bad idea. And, you know, I just want to be able to be excited about something like this without feeling like it's going to be a death knell for our society, for our planet, for our environment, for whatever. Because according to things that I've studied over the, in the past, these, not necessarily this, but just regular meteors can create havoc, and we don't even know anything about them. We can't stop them. So I think that it's going to be fun to try to figure out the best ways to handle these things. And I do know that, or I'm really hopeful, I'm really hopeful that people are working diligently to figure out how to do that. There's so many people who are so smart. And, if we could just have the scientists do their thing and have the rest of the government stay out of their way, except for giving them the funds to do it, that would be ideal, I think. And hello, Rebel Patriot. I hope you're doing well tonight. Oh, did I read that? I do not have my glasses on. I did read that right. Hello. So, I just think that one of the things that I am looking forward to is getting to know exactly what's going to happen. Anomaly number 11 screams precision engineering. Thrusters on a low-key air spacecraft holding formation. Stable gas flows from uneven heating. But man, does it look engineered, right? I just absolutely. I think it's cool. A little scary, but a lot cool. I'm trying to look and make sure that I've gone through everything. So, 250,000 kilometers an hour. That would be the ultimate speed demon thing. I just think that would be fun. I can't even imagine. I have a hard time getting over 100, and that kind of makes me tense. Not that I would do that on a busy road, but I'm just sitting here thinking, I wish I could see it. I wish that it was close enough yet. And My telescope is still acclimating, is still ready, but I don't think it's going to be close enough to see it. I mean, I don't know what region it's going to go over. So I think I hope that we can, right? But then again, it would have to be really big because I can see Jupiter. I have a hard time with some of the other planets, but I can see Jupiter, I can see Mars, I can sometimes see Venus, but I just think this would be cool. And I would like to be able to see it like we do Halley's Comet. But I digress. But anyway, that being said, I am going to be getting some people in. I've got one of our people out of Fate who are coming on in December, which is almost here. Gosh, this month is zooming by, guys. Zooming by. So provided the comet doesn't get us, right? But I have it's going to be fun. I have, oh, where did he go? Tony Rathman. I was like, I know he's in this magazine. But Tony Rathman, and if any of y'all know him, he is the best EVP guy. Am I right? I'm right. He is the best EVP guy on the planet, bar none. I back when I first started doing paranormal experience, I did an evidence contest, and he sent me EVPs, and they were so great. He won a radio show, and then right after that, our producer just disappeared with all my money. But we got back together. Not him. He's gone. He was not mine. He was just a producer, but he just disappeared. And so Tony didn't get to do a show then. He wound up doing one, and he is brilliant. But his project is called Staticom, and he's going to be on in December. And there's an article that he wrote relevant to the Staticom project, and it is in here. And let's go to page 71. Hopefully they're marked good or well. They are. Maybe. Well, you know what? I'm sitting here saying that. It's not. Now, you may have seen him at a convention somewhere, but this is the Staticom team. And it's Tony and Sherry and Ron and Move. I probably said her name wrong. I'm so terrible with that. But it's the closest thing to Thomas Edison's phone to the dead. And I have used that. I have used Staticom with them. We were in Gettysburg, and I didn't even know they were going to be there. It was so much fun, but it has encompassed years of research into successful instrumental transcommunication methods and has led to the development of what we call Staticom today, which allows for real two-way communication using nothing but broadband white noise. And I'm telling you, this is the unique methodology gaining recognition in the field is considered by many to represent the future of spirit communication, transcending the limitations of ghost boxes or phone apps. And I will vouch for that because they had this running. There was a room of people, and I heard it calling out people's names. There were people that, came through whose names I recognized, and that was unusual for me. And Tony has been working on this. He specialized in EVP research, employing a range of digital recorders and microphones, including parabolic mics to capture clearer and more relevant responses. And I think that that's what he was doing with the evidence that he submitted to me for that contest. And I was not the only judge in that contest, and I did not know Tony at the time, except as a listener. And so for me to get the chance to see his work prior to Staticon coming out was really a gift, because it was really fantastic. And so his extensive dedication led him to explore the SB7, which notably increased the quantity of responses but posed challenges in deciphering the messages, which is true. I am terrible at picking them out, but I did get a lot. But I get actually more just using a voice recorder, right? Just plain nothing, just doing that. And it's nice because I don't have the background noise of the static. And for me personally, I get really great voice recordings, just plain out of the air voice recordings. And, you know, it's you're going to be interested in this because there's a 3-part docu-series titled Knowingly Talking to the Unknown, produced by Tony, detailing the research conducted to develop the Staticon method based on Ron's, his partner's, initial book about ITC. And it's 4 people who have come together. They're 2 couples. They've been working on this. And it's really going to be an interesting show. I do not know all the ins and outs of Staticon. I've just never asked. I just used it because we were in a convention setting and I didn't want to monopolize them. Although we do not ever try to find food in Gettysburg after hours. It was an adventure. We had somebody actually lock the door as we were walking up to it and then laugh. They were so funny. But we must have looked really hungry. We were just looking for something to go to. And, this is a good description of Tony. I'm going to tell you this before we go. He's an experienced paranormal investigator with 14 years of dedicated research in various global locations, such as Japan and the Philippines. He initially held a skeptical view of the paranormal. However, his perspective shifted after a ghost hunting experience with his wife, Sherry, on a Valentine's Day weekend 14 years ago. Following that experience, they captured voices responding to their inquiries on recording devices, sparking Tony's fascination with electronic voice phenomenon. And I'm going to tell you, when you start doing that and you realize that these are intelligent people talking to you, having a conversation, and I have had an incident where I did not hear the recording until after I'd already gotten home. And I was so bent out of shape because I felt like I had been rude. I wasn't rude because I didn't know it was there, but regardless, I went back to the location and, to see if I could find that person. And then in another instance, I could not get into the location because it was being torn down. And I felt so bad because I felt like that spirit had tried to communicate with me to let me know what had happened because I didn't listen to the voice recording then. And I was actually in an emergency room of a hospital that was coming down. And I just said, did everyone in here die of a heart attack? And when I got home and was listening to that recording, it said, no, they shot me. And there was so much pain in that man's voice that I was like, oh my God, he was trying to talk to me and I walked out. I didn't know. And that's one of the times that I was very upset but everybody was leaving, including my ride. So let's see. It's crash, UAP of a cabal nature, interdimensional realities coercing us into alternative timelines. Now, the Internet of Things, Sabrina Wallace, among others. I don't know who Sabrina Wallace is. Can you tell me that? Or should I? I mean, I will research it, but I don't know who Sabrina Wallace is. But I will by tomorrow. And why do you think that it's what alternative timelines do you think it's trying to coerce us into? Not being difficult. I'm just wanting to know. And you've got about 2 minutes. Oh, you do have 2 minutes before I have to go. But I will research that. And you can reach out to me on Facebook and talk to me there because I would be interested in knowing. So, that being said, I have to go. I did not realize we were out of time. I'm so glad that you were here. I hope that you gained something from this. And, I'm just really, there we go. Self-described technologist, whistleblower, and survivor of Black Ops experimentation claims to have been a DARPA test subject, a modified child, and incredibly, some of that checks out. Oh, thank you. Hey, Sue. Thank you. I didn't know you were out there. You're going to have to come and chat more, bud. But anyway, I gotta go. Thank you so much for being here. And if we have anything more interesting, I will be bringing that to you. I will be back on Wednesday night with Paranormal Experience. That's the same time, 7 to 9 Central. And it's going to be fun. So be blessed, be good, take care of you and those you love. And you know what? I believe in fate. These are great magazines. The information's great. And I'm so blessed to be here. Thank you for supporting this show. And I will see you next time. Have a great week. Good night. And thanks again. Sue, come back.